Okay, so part two collaborations, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get into marketing this one.
You
so,
know, we come into these things with a plan, we really do, and then we get into
uh,
the conversation and it evolves, and we kind of just go with it.
yeah, conversations. So, yeah, it's a collaboration. It's would you say it's a more a modern? I'm just trying to think of collaborations in the past. Probably a good example, Queen and Bowie, Under Pressure. That is like full on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
collab there.
I mean, that's really iconic, yeah.
Yeah, imagine the egos in
And I
that
mean,
room.
like, wow,
Holy shit. Like imagine
woo.
that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I heard a story like the
Um,
bassist
so
just
while we
like I'm staying out of this. Like it's just not for me.
I mean, I can kind of totally understand. I feel like even amongst sort of lesser kind of epic superstars, there's probably enough going down. Never mind with two characters of that magnitude in a
Oh
room.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, while we were away, though, I did have an opportunity to have a bit of a think about other collaborations that I feel are particularly interesting.
Hmm.
And my partner brought up one that I thought was really so important to discuss, and that's actually Damon Albarn, who is from Blur and Gorillaz,
Oh yeah.
right? And um, is so like incredibly diverse musician because the Gorillaz, if people don't know, is actually a collaboration between Albarn and an artist. So the Gorillaz isn't like a whole band of four people who are doing their thing.
Mm,
The Gorillaz is Damon Albarn,
mm,
and they have kind of a digital band, and he collaborates in with a whole bunch of people. Like every track is almost a different collaboration.
yeah.
And really, the main collaboration in the Gorillaz is between himself and Jamie Hewlett, who is a graphic artist, right? And he creates the graphics that are known today as the Gorillaz. That iconic comic style graphic is a guy named Jamie Hewlett who does the artwork. And really, without him, there's no Gorillaz because he literally draws and creates the Gorillaz.
Yeah.
And Damon Albarn is obviously the musical mind behind the Gorillaz.
Mm.
And then they've collaborated with everyone from like Stevie Nicks
Oh
through
really?
to like Bad Bunny, like yeah, it's like the range of guys and like sort of
It's
Neil
crazy.
Gallagher, like they have collaborated with an incredible range of people on different Gorillaz tracks. So if you go and
Hmm.
look at the Gorillaz, and actually almost all of those are collaborative tracks,
Mm.
and we know and love them today. I mean, it's like they're like sort of seven albums in at this point, I think,
Mm.
which is a fairly incredible journey considering I think they started in the 1990s and they're still going
Mm.
strong
Yeah,
today.
I remember that their first single that I remember, I don't know if the singles before that, but the what was it called? Clint Eastwood that came out
Clint Eastwood, yeah.
2003. Yeah, I remember singing that. I used to go to this place to go drink on a Sunday called The Church in London, and we would be listening to like, and it was I remember that we'd be singing that song on the train. Um, Drinking pints of beer at 9 in the morning on the way to the church nightclub or day club. I don't know what you call it. And that's always that was a big track and genius for what it was at the time. No one had done anything like that before, like this made up band of
Yeah,
monkeys,
absolutely.
and
Yeah, and I think it totally still stands out as a
yeah,
unique entity.
really fresh. Well, this is the natural evolution into now AI. You can be a fairly
Yeah.
ordinary. Let's face it, particularly in pop music, it helps to be fairly good looking, doesn't it? I mean, it's that they sell the brand and stuff. It does help. It does help.
Yeah,
Now,
it helps.
yeah. So now you can create. I'm not saying it's the standard, but it does help. So now with everything moving away, I mean, we've chatted about live gigs and what's happening there. Let's face it, people moving to online to get their music fix, whether it's Spotify or
Mm,
YouTube, watching videos in YouTube. It's creating this idea, maybe sort of an AI band, or in the case of the Gorillas, like this sort of, cartoon animated concept,
mm,
and then
mm, mm.
providing music for that. and whereas I think people, and then you don't have to worry about the live thing and touring, and you just
Yeah.
concentrate on that. And I can see music definitely going that way. It's the same with I spoke to, because I teach English, as you know, and one of my students is a software developer in Italy. And he was last year discussing with a friend creating an AI girl for OnlyFans to create this AI girl for OnlyFans. So this is where it's going, because
I'm sure it's
obviously,
been done already.
yeah, I'm sure it's going on, and so for
Yeah,
him,
I'm
he
sure
said
it is.
the technology isn't quite there yet, but for them to pull it off. But I think this is
Mm.
really where it's heading. So creating, and then you can do these collaborations. He said, "Wow, it's there, Stevie Nicks and Alban. I mean, that would that work live? I don't think, but Gorillas it works, do you know, and stuff.
It works
So
for the gorillas, yeah.
yeah, and it's an opportunity for a musician to sort of become a character as well, in the sense of like, maybe movie voiceover, or you're sort of what you becoming a
Yeah.
character as opposed to, you know,
You yourself,
you're
yeah.
yourself, yeah. So it might
Mm.
be very interesting to see where this heads, particularly collaborating. Yeah,
I
it's
think
there, you know.
we could perceive them, and we sort of either perceive things in a negative light because it's scary and unknown and it could blow up in our faces. Like we look at AI, it could do that.
Hmm.
Or we can perceive the benefits of it and see it as something with potential to collaborate with. In a sense, you'd be collaborating with the AI, which
Mm,
a lot of people do already in so many ways.
mm. I think to
Even business
ignore it.
development is going like that.
But to ignore it as a tool would be, I think, a silly move completely. I think it's a great tool for things. Just little things. I'm sure creating a poster for a gig, a quick poster, and stuff like that. That's a sort of a small example. A lot of bands are turning to AI just to create a quick poster. They don't have to pay anyone, and bands don't make a lot of money. So AI is really sort of helping them with that. However, I do know there's a great cartoonist in Johannesburg, Mike Crumbs. For those listening, check out Crumbs cartoons, and that he does satire and stuff like that. I've a few times used him to for gifts, create a poster. My brother sort of finished his. He was doing a helicopter. He got his commercial license, so I got him a poster done of him in a helicopter. And Mike sort of, I said, "This is what I'm after," and Mike did a cartoon. And I was speaking to Mike, and Mike's feeling it. Definitely, he's said, "Yeah,
Mm.
the work's starting to dry up." So I don't know. It's that there. The tool is going to take over. But I think for people who maybe aren't live people or want to create an online brand for their songs, why not?
Yeah,
Why not?
yeah,
I think
yeah,
something visual to watch, and you can just put the instructions in and get a music video done. And yeah, it should be an interesting one. But I think with there, you will really be relying on collaborations heavily, heavily to keep
yeah,
things
yeah,
fresh and that
yeah,
you can get stuff on. But that's an
yeah.
excellent, yeah. The old Gorillas. Are they still going, by the way?
They're still going.
Is it?
There was a little bit of a wobble somewhere many years ago, and then they
No.
kind of found themselves again and resolved their issues, and they kept going.
Um,
And some other really amazing collaborations that come to mind were like will.i.am. He was obviously originally from the Black Eyed Peas,
mhm.
and then he collaborated with a whole bunch of other artists, and he's actually an incredible producer. So he's really had influence on a huge body of work. If you go and look at will.i.am's body of work, it's enormous. And the other one is Timberland. Like
Right.
Timberland kind of like I first came across Timberland when he was collaborating with Aaliyah. And I loved the track that Timberland and Aaliyah did. And then obviously he collaborated with like Nelly Furtado, Justin Timberlake, a
Mhm.
whole bunch of other pop artists. And he took their sound and made it so much better in my opinion.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like anything he touched was fairly gold
Mm.
for like a long while.
Yeah, he's it's this new collaboration with a producer. That sort of go. I
Yeah.
guess Rick Rubin has been doing it for years if you get a good producer, but now sort of the producer is the name. essentially,
Yeah.
particularly in hip hop. Again, hip hop sort of, leading the way in these sort of things. But yeah, he was great. What was that? It's too late to apologize. He did that.
That's the one,
What
Nelly
was that
Furtado.
band? What was that band?
Oh, that was One Direction.
I can't remember.
Pretty sure it was
Hold on. I
pretty
can't.
sure pretty sure that was One Direction.
It could.
Um, I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm incorrect.
Let me just check.
Test my
Uh,
musical knowledge here.
yeah, yeah. It could be One Direction. No. Okay, no, they're giving me. Hold on. Let me put song. That would help. There we go. Yeah, that was a big track. Oh, One Republic. Nearly,
I
nearly.
was so close. One
Yeah, yeah,
Republic.
yeah. One
The one was
Republic. Yeah, and that
yeah,
was because they were sort of fairly sort of poppy, rocky, punky band, weren't they? And then they just went
yeah,
full hip hop in that one. Really go. And yeah, Timberland sort of center stage there, on that.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And I think the interesting thing with both him and Will.i.am is that they both produce but often feature on the tracks as well. So it's
yeah.
not, they do feature as artists on a lot of those tracks vocally,
Hmm.
as well as being the producers of those tracks.
Yeah.
So,
Like they got to
yeah,
put in a yo
definitely.
yo at the back or something, hey. The
Exactly.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So my
It's kind of like it's kind of like someone needing to put themselves in cameo in every movie, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Stan Lee. You see
Starring
Stan Lee
me.
somewhere.
Yeah. It's like Quentin Tarantino's little cameo roles at there. My yeah, I was just said it's good. Oh, my brother when he was a teenager, sit there, you get the question when you're a teenager, so what are you gonna do when you leave school? So his answer was, I want to be the one-time guy for the Fugees. One time, so the fact that guy gets paid millions like that. It was such a classic answer, and you just see this adult with this racked with disappointment at the answer. It was so good. Anyway, so let's lead this into marketing now, because what I've realized in this conversation is that with marketing now online and that, I mean, sometimes you're just farting against the wind. You're just throwing out a poster there or whatever. It's a really intense
Yeah,
process now, and it's a big part of being an artist now, the being able to sort of market properly in Facebook and that. So the collaboration's almost a form of marketing, aren't they, for yourself personally, and or as you said, engaging with another market, whatever. Um, How's marketing changed? Do you see like because there's obviously someone like so it's like independent musicians like and what we're doing, this is all independent when we don't have sort of companies to work with, whatever. Marketing's become a very interesting thing, a very, very interesting and a sort of a viable thing, but also very extremely difficult because you're just one of many things out there. How's that going
yeah,
for you and your end? Because you're sort of you're very good. If someone does, you tag them in and and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd
yeah,
say that's an important part. So particularly when you do the collaborations in that sharing, but
yeah.
marketing, particularly art, it's a really, really intense process, grueling process, if anything.
So it's a very interesting thing for me because I I've been a visual artist, a painter for sort of like professionally for about 17 years,
Hmm.
and I've been a performing professional musician for 10 years. Um, and over that time, marketing art is obviously a huge challenge. It's not like you're trying to market, like funeral cover or food or, the inevitable things we all need. You're marketing a
Yeah.
luxury item, something that people have no obligation to be invested in. And you've got to somehow convince them that what you create from your passion and your soul matters so much that they must give you their hard-earned time and money.
It's true, isn't it?
And then it's really going to
Yeah.
give them something
Yeah.
so much more
Something
than
tangible. They can, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of came into this very like haphazardly at first, and a friend of mine is an amazing marketer, and she used to run a company called Marketing Matters here in South Africa, and she was a marketing lecturer and she used to teach marketing. And so at first I kind of went to her and I said, Jen, will you please do this thing for me? And she went, no. And I went, oh. And she's like, but we can have a chat about it, and I can give you some pointers.
It's like no chance, mate. Not touching
You
that
know,
with the
just
baseball
don't.
bat. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Um, so I kind of went like, okay.
Mm,
And the first album I put out, I kind of had no clue of how to market it. So I just threw it like bait out into the ocean of music and went,
mm,
please, somebody listen. And just
oh,
nobody listened for like 3 years.
yeah.
So it took about 3 years before I started to see like some fairly tangible streams on those tracks, but it was like
Mm,
very unmarketed. I had no clue that that was even necessary. I was like, if the music's good, people will love it.
mm,
Bull, total bull, not how
yeah.
it works. Um, and so then I released an EP while we were sort of mixing and mastering the second album. And that EP, I then paid Devo, who
Hmm.
from Devo Graphic, an amazing human being,
Yeah.
got loads of contacts, really knows his stuff. So I paid Devo because I didn't know what I was doing,
Hmm.
and it was great. I had like streams and interviews, and it was much better than the first album that I just threw haphazardly into the world. But by the time I came around to the second album, I was now in a position where, first off, I couldn't necessarily afford, as an artist in this day and age, to pay somebody to do that job for me anymore.
Yeah.
And second off, I kind of wanted to market more than I would have been able to afford to market if I'd paid someone else to do it. So I didn't want to just market one single off the album. I didn't
Hmm.
just want to take something out of it and say, listen to just this thing. I had this whole album. I was really proud of every single track on the album. And there were so many of them that jumped out to me that I wanted to push into the world that I thought, if I go and pay someone, they're
Mm,
not going to be able to do that for me. They're not going to want to do that for me.
yeah.
So I kind of started just launching myself into it. I was like, I have to find a way to do this myself. I've got to learn and I've got to do a good job. I'm not the kind of person that likes to do things half-heartedly. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to try my best to do it absolutely the best I can. And then if it doesn't work out, I understand that at least it wasn't because I did a half-assed job of it, right?
Sure.
So I picked one track and I thought, okay, I'm going to release one track as a radio edited single. I looked into what that track needed to be as far as like radio friendly time length, as long as like content. And I started with that one track. I made sure really good artwork for it. I made sure I had my all my background stuff really professionally sorted. EPKs, artwork for the track, metadata on the track, all that stuff, all my like I's dotted and my T's crossed.
Yeah,
I made sure
gotcha.
it was professional so that even though it was me putting it out there, it would hopefully get a positive response or at least a
Mm,
look. And I I started out slow. I got a couple of radio plays and a couple of people who were like, cool, we'll play your track. And that was really encouraging. And the first track that I put out, I got like 4 different radio stations around the world. 4 people played it. And to me, that was all the encouragement I needed. I'd said to myself that if I can get any radio plays from that track, I would persevere with the marketing side of it.
hmm. Yeah.
And so then I pushed and I pushed. And the more I did it, the more I grew my database and my contact list. And the more I developed contacts, the more I learned how to look for those contacts or where to look for them. And so it became like, and still is, a growing entity of marketing kind of productivity for me where I constantly am sending to new radio stations. I'm constantly searching, like almost on a daily basis or a weekly basis. I go and try and find like a couple of new radio contacts to send tracks through to
Hmm.
from around the world.
Yeah.
Um, I constantly am looking for different media publications or podcasts or um, music e-zines that will review music or that will want to interview artists. And in doing so, started my own podcast to do the same thing,
Hmm.
and found you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's
So
how we met up
it's a
reading.
constantly, yeah, exactly. So it's
Mm,
this constantly growing thing, and it's really about continual effort. If you want something to succeed, you have to
mhm.
continually be putting energy into it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really the core of marketing. is being able to just be persistent,
Mm.
and just be like a terrier and just like keep at it.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously there's the social media side of marketing, which is an enormous thing. And it is the thing that I think artists have the most kind of challenge with. Like, it's one thing for me to send out 50 emails a week to different radio stations. That is admin and it's hard. It
Mm.
takes dedication and it takes time and passion to force yourself to get up each day and do those sorts of like mundane tasks when you're a creative person. But when it comes to social media, it's exhausting on another level because you are trying to create content that catches people. You're trying to grow your fan base digitally, basically. It's like you are performing live on a daily basis, even if it is just for,
Yeah.
a minute and a half over the course of three reels. Like, it is still this output of this is me world. Hi, this is me. Hi, thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's little nudges, isn't it? It's a little poke. It's a little poke each time, and
yeah,
it's almost as if, I don't know how many times it takes, but in my own experience, you see you breeze past an advert one day, and then you notice a word or picture on it, the next advert, you go, oh, there, and then but you breeze past, and then you breeze past. Eventually, you look at that poster, whether it's coming in different, and that's why I think with your branding and your face being on it, eventually they stop and go, oh, okay, there's something here. It's getting past
yeah,
because I think most it's the TikTok swipe, the Tinder swipe. It's like that. It all sort of comes in, and when it's catching those people who are doom scrolling, to sort of and
yeah, yeah,
eventually
yeah.
stop and actually read what you've put there and click on the link or tune in to the show or whatever, or go to the gig, or and there's just
Yeah,
so much coming at that person every day. It's just,
constantly.
I think it's, as you said, that consistency. You need to give people time to sort of buy into what your brand is, or your logo and your face, and oh, what is this person doing exactly? Oh, is
Yeah.
that what they're doing? Sometimes, like with my radio show, I got to, I go basically, I start from 10 in the morning till 2, and I just put out things out here, there, and everywhere just to make
Mm,
people aware.
mm.
And the reason I do it on the day is because I know if I do it on Tuesday, by Tuesday afternoon, people have forgotten. Then I'm gonna have to do it again and again. I was like,
Forgotten. Totally. Yeah.
yeah, so you got to do it. I do it on the Friday and it's fresh and stuff like, oh, Sean's on today. Brilliant. I'll click onto that and just put a mental note, whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a heavy thing, and I think this is where we are missing the big labels, who would have a marketing
Yeah.
department who, because let's face it, guys, guys of the past, just they played a lot of gigs. They didn't have the internet. They'll put up a poster, and then, if you're an up and coming band, getting an interview on the local TV station or radio was tough. But with your label, the label will go, all right, you got a 1 o'clock here, you got a 2 o'clock there. Please be ready. Please don't be drunk. Get those.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Sharp
let's
clean.
and as you said, for a lot of artists, it's a challenge to sort of be that organized and stuff. A lot of sort of arty ADD kids who literally just want to sit and play the guitar in the room and develop that and develop songs and that. It's about 10% of it now, of the work. With the sort of the marketing. I think marketing is the big thing. I think marketing companies should just hire musicians and artists, photographers. They're
I,
getting
I
these
think so.
people with degrees, marketing degrees. That's not the person you want to hire. You want to hire a struggling muso. That person will
Who's been
knows it's
working at it?
yeah,
They're
sure.
dedicated.
Yeah, I've been doing marketing for
But I
20
mean,
years.
it's a huge thing. Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. And it is a huge thing. And I think that like it starts out as it's a bit of a weird thing too, because to me it feels sometimes a bit illusionary, like I've created this sort of image of success online.
hmm.
And when you're the person behind the scenes doing the work, you may not be feeling it the way it appears to be to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I then, for example, like this weekend, we have a show. It pours with rain. Somehow I managed to convince people to still come out to the show. I wasn't even
Mhm.
playing, I was just marketing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd still managed to get people to show up. And I was like, geez, I actually feel fairly proud of myself. Like people got out of their houses in the
Yeah.
rain and came
Credit
to
to
a
you.
music event.
Credit. Massive
And
kudos to
it
you.
did feel huge.
Mm,
And I realized that my ability to influence people's decisions has actually grown, which means I'm doing
mm,
a good job, genuinely doing a good job.
yeah.
And then one of the bands that was performing came up to me after the show and said, like, we really just need to chat to you about marketing our music. Can we talk about how much like what you would charge, what your fee would be? And I'm like, whoa, no, I'm not doing that for other people. Like I'm
Mm,
happy to empower you and teach
mm,
you and guide you. Like we can do like a pay as you go kind of student teacher deal here, but like
mm.
I'm not looking to become your marketing agent.
Yeah.
That's
Sitting
not
in a room
that's
pushing
not
your
what I'm trying to
product.
set up here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I'm happy to empower musicians through the knowledge I've gained
Mm,
to become that for themselves. Because I feel like the consistency that it requires and the amount we earn as musicians, you can't pay somebody else to do that job anymore.
no.
Unless you're really loaded
Mm,
and unless you're really getting paid well for your shows, which is really rare, it doesn't
mm,
convert, you know. We're not earning royalty streams the way we were before. And
yeah.
um so it is like it's an interesting thing. And I think that I, I think every now and again you almost have to learn to look at it from a third person's perspective, from an outside perspective. You
Hmm.
know, you're behind the scenes, you're slogging away, you're doing the work, and you don't necessarily see how powerful it is unless you can look through somebody else's eyes. So every now and again, ask your family, your friends, listen to people. You know, I had someone, I was at a funeral the other day and we went to like the wake afterwards, and I walked into somebody I hadn't seen in about sort of 7 years. And the first thing she said to me is, wow, you know, I see your music's really blowing up. And I was like, no one's ever described my music as blowing up. Um,
Like, gee, thanks. Here you go. Blow it up. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. Totally. But
but
again, you
it
know,
was good for me to see through someone else's eyes to
mm,
gain perspective on the work I'm putting in behind the scenes and see that
sure.
it is actually having an impact. And then something else you mentioned there was brand identity. That's a
Mm,
huge part of marketing.
yeah. You got to figure it out. What's my brand? Who am I?
Yeah.
What do people see, and who am I wanting to reach? I think in a way it's still something I've started now, like with going from being a musician into this space. You know, I've spent the last 2 years. It's been 2 years now. I've been doing this sort of online radio and stuff like that, and sort of slowly went into interviews and now doing these. You know, and but I was a friend of mine I was chatting to. She was like, well, who's your market? And I was like, don't know. And I said, oh, well, it's niche. I'm looking at the local scene in that, but I don't think about it. I mean, who am I trying to reach exactly? And you know, you gotta ask all these questions and then brand identity. And I think that's where it starts to monetize. If you're very aware of your brand and what you're putting out there and who you're reaching, that's when you start monetizing. Because it's changed. Let's face it, sort of
Mm,
going,
mm.
okay, the most of the money in music now is the live gig. You know, streaming's probably a
And
distant
merchandise.
distant second. Yeah, and merchandise, as we said last thing with your little band ideas, which was cool. You know, with the album on the USB and just
Mm,
little
mm.
things like that. A t-shirt, a cap, or some stickers. I love a band sticker now. I put on my fridge. I've got my fridge is littered with band
I
stickers, and
know.
yeah, the best. So
Yeah, it
you
makes it
know.
my guitar case is like that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're on. Like, yeah, it's very cool. So, yeah, it's all deals into that. And again, with the lack of money in music now with streaming, and people really going to streaming for the music kick, maybe a festival like Splashy or Millipop or whatever. And the live gig is becoming more and very unreliable. So and it means your brand is super important, and how people identify you, the brand experience, particularly how they experience your brand. Where there's you get often the stand-up comedians are great at this. The TikTok video, something silly. It's 5 minutes. Like, hey, like I was out. I was there, and they got a little funny anecdote. They're out with their wife or friend or whatever, and they do a cheeky TikTok, and then they go, and it just keeps them in the public eye. and that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, do you think it's sort of one because before you could just do one big event, now it's like you almost need lots of little events, little
So,
TikToks, a
so
little
after
reel,
our
a little.
conversations, yeah, I mean, like even these conversations for me have helped me to delve into ideas and concepts and generate new ideas and concepts around marketing and brand identity. And answering that question of who is your audience, who are you trying to reach, and what is your brand identity are very hard questions to figure
Mm,
out an answer to. Especially if you are not in a particular genre. Like me, and my music kind of crosses between genres. It is it has been very hard for me to tie it down to a genre and then therefore say this is who I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to reach everybody.
mm,
And it's taken me this whole year. It's taken me releasing the second album. It's taken these conversations with you for me to really start to tie it down and be like, oh, that's what my brand is.
mm,
That's what I've been trying to figure out for like 9 years.
sure.
And I know when I speak to other bands, I say to them, what is your brand identity? They kind of get this like, like panicked deer in headlights facial
Yeah.
expression
Because they're not, A, no one's asked them,
because
and
I
then B, they
understand.
don't know. Yeah, they don't know. Like, well,
And
I don't know.
and how do you figure it out? What
Mm,
is the roadmap to figuring out what is your brand identity?
yeah.
Like, for me, I've come to the realization that for me, I'm a bard. I'm a storyteller. I'm a bard. I
Mm,
play, I talk about myth and legend and folklore and fairy tale from around the world. My music crosses genres because it crosses
mm,
cultures. And so it pulls on those melodies and those musical sounds from different culture. But the
mm,
core, the thing that is recurrent in my music is the bardic storytelling aspect,
sure.
that reconnecting with sort of stories
Mm,
from cultures around the world. And so instead of trying to tie myself into a genre, I've really started to develop this persona and this character as the bard, the
mm,
storyteller. And
right.
now my live shows will begin to reflect that. My merchandise will begin to reflect that ethos. Where now, for a live show like my tour that's coming up to Joburg and Pretoria, the whole vibe of that is going to be about embodying myth and legend, encouraging my audience to join in on that so that they're
Mm,
invested in the music and they're invested in being at the show because it's not an experience you can have on YouTube
sure.
or on TikTok or on Spotify. So people are drawn then to come to the live shows because the experience that they're having as part of the music is
Mm,
something unique in that moment.
sure.
And I
Sure.
mean, those are ideas that have come up because of our conversations.
Mm.
And that is affecting how I dress on stage. It affects how I make my band dress on stage. Sorry, guys. Um, but it's
Yeah, put this on. What do I have to? Yes, put it on. There you go.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, put it on.
Um, so it's helped me to tie down who I'm talking to.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's helped me to figure out that there is a whole culture of people who are invested in sort of their own culture's folklore. The Comic Con kids, the people who would love to frequent a masquerade ball or a medieval festival. You're my people, man. You're the
Mm.
weirdos on the sideline that don't get to go out in the costumes you would love to wear, but you can come to my show in those costumes and I'll give you a prize.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Well, this is the thing. Like, I think there's this idea with musicians, just if and I think we said it before. You need to gauge success. What is success exactly? And music is. I think we sort of with musicians, it's either it's boom or bust, isn't it? Really, and I don't think that's necessarily
Mm.
the case anymore. I think you can sort of build up a few thousand listeners and followers who buy stuff, and you can listen, you're not going to be driving a Ferrari anytime soon, but also that's a nice little income. If you're sort of releasing stuff, people
Yeah.
get buying into a new album and they get the merch and they come to the gig, or they give you, you go on this playlist or whatever and they give you streams, and and then it's then from that they buy into your podcast, or it's just putting out, maybe you can use it to do a songwriting class as well. So people are like, oh, and then you can say, okay, it's on this,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it's just pushing it out there. I was just thinking while you were talking, an excellent brand that's just really changed the mold for me, particularly in Southern Africa. the Black Mamba Man who played Splashy. Um, that
He's actually from
brand,
Zimbabwe originally, by the by.
yeah, yeah, no, he's a Zimbo, and that whole Zimbo farmer boy, singing about going fishing in Kariba and da, 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 and driving a 4x4 and that whole brand. And I went to the gig at Splashy, which was just when he came out, that egg was just superb. But also I interviewed him. I've actually got him in one of my interviews. Let's check out. It's a really cool interview, and he's a very interesting guy. Who's sort of going that, but he's so aware of his. But I think Alistair can only be that person. And he's like, well, this
Mm,
is it. This is me. I'm going to sell the life. It's the being, being the sort of white kid in Zimbabwe and sort of going to their schools. And, he's these
mm,
songs about a lovely song about South Africa. Cause I mean, South Africa is really I've never seen an Instagrammer because he's an Instagrammer, and a YouTuber. And
mm,
when I first my cousin actually put me onto me. You should check this guy. He does all these sort of parody style songs, and I basically followed
mm,
him
mm.
through on Instagram. And when I first saw him, he was living in Portugal, living at a
Yeah.
like a sort of hostel. I think he was doing work at a hostel, and he was going busking and he was writing his songs. Then he came back to Zim and did his thing, and he's just this and like he tours South Africa regularly. He's got himself a vehicle, a little combi, and he goes with his girlfriend, and he packs a big wooden baboon who's smoking a spliff, and the whole thing. And it's a guy with a guitar. And I watched me at Vinpomp in Pretoria, and the place was jam packed. And I sent a video. It's because I was in a band at the
Yeah.
time. I was in a video. I was like, we're being apps having our asses kicked by a Zimbabwean Instagrammer. The place was packed, and they bought. And it's anything but the brand, a brand awareness, what he's selling. He knows what he's selling and what he needs to do, and the sort of
Mm.
and his ability to do satire. On the other hand, the interesting about the interview was just going away from the topic was the sad thing was he feels he can't release like songs that aren't like jokey, like satire. So he's under a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
recreate these songs all the time. So because he's actually got songs about being in the army. He was in Special Forces, British Army, and he saw some stuff. Okay, so there you go. Sorry about that, Dawn. But sort of I lost the clock there. So anyway, it was the end of the meeting. But yeah, let's wrap it up.
Good to be involved in conversation.
Yeah, no, fully
I
in
think
depth there.
there's one more point I want to make, and you were bringing it up there right at the end. You were touching on it when you were talking about Black Mamba Man, and you were just saying how there's certain content that he doesn't feel is necessarily brand appropriate for the
Mm,
brand he currently has, and he has to now try and figure out a way to find a home for that, right?
mm, absolutely.
Um, I think that there is a place and time to create a secondary brand
Hmm.
that is different from your initial brand, and there will be some crossover, because if you're already established, you have a fan base you can market to already.
Hmm.
But I also think there's a time and place for up and coming artists to kind of trial and error, and if something isn't working, change it,
Hmm.
grow,
Yeah.
and become guide your brand into something different if it needs to shift. Whether that's because your music sound changes or your content changes, or whether it is because your brand that you think you have isn't really hitting home with people and isn't working. Don't be afraid to change. It's a huge thing. We get stuck
Yeah.
in, we get super invested, we try really hard, and then if it's not working, we go, well, it must just be a failure. When maybe it's not. Maybe it's just that it's a bit of a misdirection, and we just need to find a
Mm,
slightly new path
sure.
to be the success we want to be.
Yeah, yeah. I think you constantly got to look at it, and it's not a new thing. That if you take a sort of pop, brands, Bowie's perfect example. He's come up a few times now in this conversation, but Bowie wasn't afraid to change up. He went from Spider and Mars to the whole 80s thing, sort of glam rock to sort of 80s pop, and then
Yeah.
90s dance. Hello Space Boy. He went into that whole sort of EDM vibe, and he just changed up. The other one's Madonna, and she's probably she was really
Yeah.
good at that
Yeah.
sort of portraying. So creating these characters, and sort of and adapting to the times. And largely the 90s and early noughties had really worked well for her. Sort of that adaptation, sort of almost
Mhm.
embraced her age, in a sense, not anymore, but
Yeah.
she almost embraced her age and like, okay, I'm sort of, I'm not sort of a 21-year-old little sex kitten anymore. So, but then she started doing more grown-up songs, started doing movies, and there's a lot of
Mm.
them that sort of go the change. But other one, as I said earlier, but Robert Plant is sort of taking that massive risk to going to
Yeah.
do sort of going to sort of more folky sound, changed his sound, his vocals
Mm.
totally different, singing a different. He didn't feel under
Yeah.
pressure. He's like, all right, I can't do that sort of rock and roll screamy voice that I could do at the
That's not who
height
he
of.
is anymore.
Yeah, it's not me.
Yeah.
So, and also go really delving deep into the lyric and the meaning of the songs and stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty important to
I
be
think,
as adaptable as possible.
yeah. And I think one of the main things when it comes to marketing is that you need something that is iconic. You need to create an image and a brand that is recognizable and that stands out, right? But
Hmm.
it still has to be authentic. There's no point in going and creating something that isn't just because it looks good on paper or looks good in videos, that isn't actually tying back to a part of who you are, at least.
Hmm.
You won't be able to sustain it, and
Yeah.
it's going to ring hollow at some point. Someone will pick up that you're
Yeah.
bullshitting,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Sure.
really think that you've got to find that balance between your authentic self and the
Mm.
brand you're creating, and creating a recognizable, iconic image and sound and story behind
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
brand. Um,
And
so
developing the
those are my
concept.
three, like,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. And then quirky marketing,
Mm.
like quirky merchandise ideas, those sorts of things that are different, that make people want to buy that little thing. It can be a tiny thing, but if you sell 100 tiny things, you still made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, I think we really like play with the idea, but it helps if you've got an identity to work within, then that helps to stimulate content that connects back to your brand, and it all ties
Mm.
together then at the end.
Mm.
So yeah, those are my like top tips, I suppose,
Yeah.
for marketing yourself,
Yeah, you
really.
you bring it up because it's like I think in the past you could hide who you were before online. If you're a bit of a dick. I don't know. Ellen DeGeneres is a
Yeah.
perfect example of that sort of that got being exposed. She couldn't, she was sort of her public persona was this, happy-go-lucky comedian and liked to joke, and that turns
Mm.
out when it came to it, she was, quite a hard taskmaster and expected a lot of people. And, I don't know the
Mm.
claims of who she was, whether they're true or not, or she was being turned on. That I don't know.
Mm.
But that people realize we don't actually know who this person is. And I think in the sort of modern age now, particularly I think with the younger people, the younger generations, they sort of really do buy into the brand, the personality, and then we'll sort of
And authenticity.
yeah, you got to be authentic. And so if you're a knob, be a knob. You know, it's it. Sort of push
Yeah.
that. Some people,
Some
because
people are
some
going to
people,
love you for being that,
yeah,
and being true about it.
yeah, it's
Some people will
it's an odd
respect
one.
that honesty.
Yeah, sure, sure,
But
sure.
yeah, I think that it's there was a point that you were bringing up there about sort of like in the modern day and age not really being able to hide who you are. So I really think part of discovering your brand is learning about yourself, and that's a
Mm,
journey we all should be keen to go on anyway,
yeah.
and keen to develop who we are. So it's really viable and valuable. It's time you're going to spend putting into your career as a musician or as an artist, but it's also
Mm,
time you're spending putting into your soul and yourself. So it's not, you're going to
yeah.
gain no matter what you do, you're gaining from this experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting that, and these guys are popping through now, the authentic brands. Who's that guy, the American guy, the singer who did the sort of folky songs, red hair, Oliver something. Anyway, he was on Joe Rogan, and he was just putting his songs on YouTube, and and he did it for ages, and eventually one of the videos stuck. And just live, his
Yeah.
mate was so there you go, and he would putting these things on, and sort of it can work out with that. It's authentic
Mm.
brands. I think Arctic Monkeys were a YouTube band, came through that way.
Yeah,
Just a cool brand, cool young kids doing things. They're really aware of what they were representing and how they wanted the videos to
yeah.
look like, and it did work. So it is doable. But on that note,
And
I
my
think,
other so here's my tie up for this
yeah,
one, Sean. I'm going to
okay.
just jump in here and be like, my other really big thing, like you said way earlier in this conversation, was like tagging people in posts, like being grateful, right?
Mm-hmm.
I spend a large chunk of my time putting out like gratitude posts where I'm literally just taking little videos of myself wandering around going, you know what? I'd like to just thank these DJs from these radio stations who are playing my songs this week. And I put out little like photos with a whole list of all the different stations and little flags from around the world where they played on. And I
Yeah.
make sure I tag all these people. I make sure I say thank you. I make sure I share the content that they're putting out there. If they put out an ad for the show, I share it on my platforms. Same goes with anyone who interviews me for a podcast. I'm not just going to be like, oh, cool, I did that podcast. And then I just like, it's all on you now to share it, Sean. It's on you,
Mm.
buddy.
Yeah, yeah,
No, this
yeah.
is like a shared marketing journey.
Mm.
And I think that's a huge thing, especially if you're one of those people whose brand is authenticity, being grateful and really bothering to put the time and to share what other people are doing for you is really important. And I mean,
Mm.
I've interviewed some really like very famous musicians, and only a handful of them actually follow through with sharing the posts,
Mm.
sharing the marketing, and actually being grateful for that time and effort, no matter how big or small, has been put into their journey and into marketing them.
Yeah,
So it's a really important thing. And I think that
yeah.
makes people want to continue to help you in this industry. And if you don't do that, someone's going to go, oh, you're actually a dick.
Mm.
And then they'll leave you be on the wayside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's important to the tag in and post this is that, even if it's like we're talking to musos about it, sort of sharing each other's releases and stuff like that as a cool band, and sort of
Yeah.
giving them access. You're accessing their crowd, and you're giving them a chance for people to access, them to access your crowd and stuff like that, and letting the public know there's actually some really cool stuff going on here. There is a scene, it's the best way to promote a scene, particularly the live scene here. It's been, and it's often something I chat to Ruby about. There's an ember burning, and it's another guy, Jacques Diaga. We chatted about it. He's been numerous bands in that, and he said there's something happening now.
Mm.
How it's going to
We're
come
starting to
out.
fan that fire, man.
Yeah, there's an ember burning here, and we're just trying to figure out what it is. And I think the public is slowly sort of coming to thinking, okay, there's a scene of brew again and again. The way those happen is by sort of collaborations, marketing each other, and giving people an idea of what's happening. And I think that's just the best way to go.
Yeah.
I think particularly South African music, like the South African rock scene, particularly really need to start tagging each other in, getting it. And for sort of Joe Soap, who's sort of, the Saturday rugby and Braaivleis person, sort of go, oh, this is cool. This is gig happening next week. It's like all these bands and so's playing. Looks like a lot of fun. Those chit chats are getting, we should get into a podcast or share a podcast or whatever. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the way it is.
Word of mouth advertising. Yeah.
You
But
know,
on
it's,
that note,
mm,
I'm going to use this moment to say thank you to the people who bother to tune in and listen, whether that is to the music, whether it's coming to a live show, or whether
mm,
it's listening to this podcast that we have so passionately been putting together for you guys.
mm.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah,
And
thanks
I
so
hope you've
much.
enjoyed the
Agreed.
episode so far.
And thank
Tune
you,
in for more.
Dawn, for another great chit chat, and we'll catch you soon. We'll re-collaborate at some
You too,
later
Sean.
point. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, and thanks
Continued
for
collaboration.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, tune into Dawn's other podcasts. Check her out. And yeah, I've got some interviews online. Look out for #Drawling Sean McBride interviews. And yeah, there's some other great stuff. And anything you want to promote here, your podcasts or anything before we go?
Yeah, absolutely. Tune into the Diverse Creative, which is on YouTube. That's on my Dawn Melanie YouTube page. But if you just Google the Diverse Creative, it also pops up.
Hmm.
And like you said, tune into Drawling with Sean McBride. And between us, we cover a lot of very, very cool music, very cool artists. And for me, a couple of other random things get thrown in the mixer.
Mm.
I'm going to be interviewing some medieval sword fighters. I'm going to be interviewing some guitar
Fantastic.
manufacturers.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, so
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in some fun ones. But like anything and everything, really. It's
Mm.
anything creative and diverse is going to be coming in through my podcast, as well as lots of interviews with musicians and artists. So please do follow us on all our social medias. Sean McBride, you are on Berg Studio on a Friday afternoon.
That's it. 2 to 4, baby.
There you go. And my music is out there on all the different streaming platforms, and my songs are played on radio stations around the world. My podcast is on YouTube. Find us there.
Yeah, search and find out. All right, Dawn, catch you later. Have a good one.
Catch you later, Sean. You
Ta-da.
too. Bye, mate.